Before I go into anything further, is there anything that stands out to you about just the patterns and some of the things that come up along the way?
Um, I think one of the patterns that happens when you're a business owner is that you have to get out of the mindset of being an employee first. And in that first 5 years, you have that employee mindset.
Hmm.
You gotta work so many hours, you gotta do things a certain way, the way corporate did them, but you're in a different space when it comes to being a business owner in an expertise that you have, that you may have gained through that corporate experience, right?
Hmm.
So, people have to get over that before they can be like, huh, like I get to call the shots. No one is telling me or motivating me. It
Hmm.
has to be internal.
Yes.
It
Yes.
must be internal. So just getting over that hump, like, the regular paycheck. Cause as an entrepreneur, that paycheck
Hmm.
ain't regular.
Hmm.
And it ain't
Hmm.
regular for quite some time, right?
Hmm.
So those are some of the things that I can recall. Just coming from corporate, being, doing my own thing, trying to figure out how do I sell this expertise?
Yes.
How do I do that? How do I make money at it? Right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes, and I've worked with people who thought they were in business, but what they really had was a nonprofit because they did not understand how to position what their expertise was and transferring transformation to someone else and putting a dollar figure on it. And they get caught up
Absolutely.
in that, so they just don't sell anything.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, what you said is so triggering in some good ways and some bad memories.
Yep.
I definitely agree. One of the things that I came to, I would say last week, is I had a conversation with someone, and he was laying out his business model, and he was telling me about this AI tool that he was running out. And I said, okay, I can see where you're at with it. And then the corporate side of me kicked in because I'm like, all right, well, if you're telling me all of these things, then it means that you're ready and you figured these things out. So I said, well, you covered use case one. Let's talk about use case two, three, and four. And his thing is, well, whoa. And I lost him. And I
Mhm.
had to realize that, one of the things that I took after that, I said, okay, well, at least I made him aware that there's a
Mhm.
next step after that.
Yes.
But I had to learn a lesson from that as well. And one of the lessons that I learned was the difficulty of transitioning what our corporate experience is over into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And the takeaway that I got from it was I have to be more aware of readiness
Mm.
because we can't necessarily explain something to someone when they are not in a position to be able to hear it.
Yes.
And I explain a lot of times, and this is why I love my grandmother, is that she used to say, "Did you hear what I said?" And I would say, "Yes." And she said, "But were you listening?"
Mhm.
There are a lot of people that are willing to hear you out, but they're not necessarily listening.
Listening. Yeah.
And the takeaway that I get from some of it is you have to understand where they're at, and you also have to understand where they're trying to go. So I've almost reset the whole way that I do things. Instead of working start to finish, I work finish to start. Tell me where you're trying to go, what your
Mhm.
destination looks like. And then I can start to work backwards and say, okay, well, here's what the path looks like. Here's some of the options,
Mhm.
and then we can get to the beginning and then work our way back from there. So I think it's really important to understand that, because one of the other things that I took away from that call is the difference between passion and purpose. We
Mm.
can be very passionate about something, but we can't forget that the business model is the business is a business. And if we are so focused on our passion, we can bypass the purpose of, like you said, nonprofit.
Mhm.
And people, we have to make money. You have to keep the lights on. You
You
have to
do.
do certain things to make it work. Otherwise, it's not a business. It's a passion project. It's a hobby. It's something that we like to do, but
Mhm.
it is not a business. So I
Business.
love that that's where you started, because that is one of the biggest things that we have to learn. And then I think one of the other things that I took away more recently is within that passion, sometimes we want to be the hero in the story. And
Mhm.
one of the other things that I know that I take from the corporate side over to entrepreneur is on the corporate side, I was rewarded for being able to see further down the road. I was rewarded for being able to mitigate risk and do all of these things, and that expertise paid me well.
Mhm.
But now, as an entrepreneur, that expertise gets in the way of me getting paid
Yes.
because I will overwhelm someone
Yes.
based on, well, here's all the things that I'm saying. Here's your options. Here's this, here's that. And I can just tell when they start to glaze over and they're just like, I just wanted to be a hero in the story. I just want to come in and save the day. And it's when you grow to a certain point, you realize that it doesn't require you, it requires a solution. And those are two different things. So when
Mhm.
you first starting your business, yes, you want to be the person where you can say, well, I made this difference, I did this, I did that. But as you get further along, you realize in order, if you're really trying to be a business, you're going to have to scale and you cannot be involved in every single aspect or you will burn out or you will do some things where you end up doing real damage to your reputation and other people's lives. I'll just say it that way.
That is true.
So,
Most people starting out, there's this hustle culture as well,
mhm,
you know?
mhm,
And you gotta do this, you gotta be on this platform, that platform, you gotta go to this event and that event, and you're not paying attention to your own internal body, like, and
yes.
how it's reacting. So, yes, you do have to make money.
Mhm,
And yes, you do have to make those connections, especially when you're new or in
mhm,
business. But you can't forget that you there is a balance to this, or
yes.
you will crash and burn. You will crash and burn. So, I'm not saying that you shouldn't hustle because there's a time for that,
Mhm,
but you shouldn't always be in hustle because if you are if you are being retrospective about what you learned in that hustle to set you up for the future so that you can work in flow, then your life is more balanced.
yes.
Your life is more balanced as the entrepreneur. And I'm not saying like coming from that corporate mindset,
Mm.
you always have to show up to work on Monday morning,
Yes.
you know? And
Rain or
you always
shine.
look forward to Friday.
Mhm.
But when you own the business, it's 24/7. And
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that. So
No.
they can get burned out in it because they haven't identified its place. And that's a hard one for people to learn and understand too.